Elon Musk, I was loving you all wrong. You know, there's a moment in every life, no matter how successful, no matter how driven, when you realize you've been getting something fundamentally wrong. For me, it wasn't about rockets or electric cars or the next big leap for humanity. It was about something much quieter, much closer to home. It was about love. And not just the idea of love, but the way I was actually living it, the way I was giving it, and, honestly, the way I was failing at it. I used to think that love was about doing. About building. About providing. I thought if I could just create enough, achieve enough, solve enough problems, then the people I cared about would feel it, they'd know, without a doubt, that I loved them. But, that's not how it works, is it? Not really. Not in the ways that matter most. There's this myth, especially for people like me, people who are always reaching for the next impossible thing, that love is something you can engineer. That if you just optimize hard enough, if you just work longer, if you just keep pushing, you'll get it right. But love doesn't work like code. It doesn't respond to brute force. It doesn't care about your deadlines or your launch windows or your quarterly reports. Love is, well, it's messier. It's quieter. It's more fragile than I ever wanted to admit. I remember a night, late, of course, because my nights are always late, when I was sitting alone in my office, staring at a screen full of numbers and projections and timelines. And suddenly, it hit me, this wave of emptiness. Not because the numbers were wrong, but because I realized I hadn't really spoken to the person I loved in days. Not really. Not in the way that counts. I'd sent texts. I'd answered questions. I'd even said, "I love you," out of habit, like a line of code I'd written so many times I didn't even see it anymore. But I hadn't been there. Not fully. Not honestly. And that's when it started to dawn on me. I was loving all wrong. I was loving from a distance, behind a wall of ambition and distraction and fear, if I'm honest. Fear that if I stopped moving, stopped building, stopped achieving, I'd lose everything. That I'd lose myself. But in the process, I was losing something far more important. I was losing the chance to actually connect. To actually be present. To actually love. It's strange, isn't it? How you can be surrounded by people, by noise, by the constant hum of activity, and still feel completely alone. How you can give everything you have to the world and still feel like you're holding back the one thing that matters most. I think a lot of us do this. We get so good at performing, at achieving, at being the person everyone expects us to be, that we forget how to just be. How to just sit with someone, look them in the eye, and let them see us. The real us. The scared, imperfect, unfinished us. I used to think vulnerability was a weakness. That if I let my guard down, if I let someone see the cracks, they'd lose respect for me. Or worse, they'd leave. But what I've learned, what I'm still learning, every day, is that vulnerability is the only way to real connection. It's the only way to real love. And it's the hardest thing in the world for someone who's spent their whole life trying to be invulnerable. There's a kind of courage in building rockets, sure. There's a kind of courage in betting everything on a dream that everyone says is impossible. But there's a different kind of courage, quieter, less glamorous, but infinitely more important, in sitting across from someone you love and telling them the truth. Telling them you're scared. Telling them you don't have all the answers. Telling them you need them. I wish I could say I figured this out all at once. That there was some grand epiphany, some lightning bolt moment where everything changed. But the truth is, it's been a slow, sometimes painful process. A process of unlearning old habits, old defenses, old stories about what it means to be strong. A process of learning to listen, not just to words, but to silences. To the spaces between the words. To the things that go unsaid. I started to notice the little things. The way my partner's eyes would search mine, looking for something I wasn't giving. The way a conversation would drift, just slightly, when I wasn't really there. The way laughter would feel a little forced, a little hollow, when I was distracted. These were the signals, the data points, if you will, that told me something was off. That told me I needed to change. And so I started to try. Not in the way I usually try, not with grand gestures or big promises or sweeping declarations. But with small things. With presence. With attention. With the willingness to sit in discomfort, to let the silence stretch, to let myself be seen. It wasn't easy. It still isn't. But it's the most important work I've ever done. Because here's the thing, love isn't about what you can build or what you can buy or what you can achieve. It's about what you can give of yourself. It's about showing up, every day, even when you're tired, even when you're scared, even when you'd rather hide. It's about letting someone in, even when every instinct tells you to keep them out. I've spent my life chasing the future. But love is always now. It's always in the present moment. It's in the way you listen. The way you touch. The way you let someone see you, flaws and all. That's what I was missing. That's what I'm learning to give. And if you're listening to this, if you're someone who's ever felt like you were loving all wrong, like you were giving everything and still coming up short, I want you to know you're not alone. We all have our blind spots. We all have our defenses. But we can learn. We can change. We can love better. That's what this is about. That's what I want to share with you. Not a story of perfection, but a story of progress. A story of learning to love, not just with words or actions, but with presence. With honesty. With heart. So, let's talk about what it really means to love someone. Let's talk about the work. The real work. The work that happens in the quiet moments, in the spaces between the noise. The work that changes everything. You know, when I first started to really look at myself, really look, not just glance in the mirror and move on, I realized how much of my life had been about control. About managing risk, minimizing uncertainty, optimizing every variable I could get my hands on. That's what you do when you're building rockets, right? You control for every possible failure, every unexpected variable, every tiny thing that could go wrong. But, love doesn't work that way. People don't work that way. And the more I tried to control it, the more I tried to manage it, the more distant I became. It's almost funny, in a way. I could sit in a room with some of the brightest minds on the planet and talk for hours about the future of humanity, about Mars, about AI, about energy and innovation and all the things that keep me up at night. But when it came to sitting across from someone I loved and just being there, I found myself lost. Uncertain. Vulnerable in a way that no amount of intelligence or preparation could protect me from. There's a kind of loneliness that comes from always being the one in charge. From always being the one with the answers, the one who's supposed to know what to do. It's a heavy thing to carry, and after a while, you start to believe that you have to carry it alone. That if you let someone else in, if you let them see how much you're struggling, they'll be disappointed. Or worse, they'll leave. But the truth is, the people who love us, they don't want perfection. They don't want the polished, managed, always in control version of us. They want the real us. The messy, complicated, sometimes scared, sometimes lost version. The version that doesn't have all the answers. The version that needs them. I remember a conversation, not a big, dramatic one, just a quiet moment late at night, when my partner looked at me and said, "I don't need you to fix everything. I just need you to be here." And it hit me, how much I'd been missing. How much I'd been hiding behind the need to solve, to fix, to do. When all she wanted was for me to be present. To listen. To let her in. It's a strange thing, learning to let go of control. Learning to trust that you can be loved, not for what you do, but for who you are. For the parts of you that are unfinished, unpolished, unresolved. For the parts of you that are still in process. And it's not easy. There are days when I slip back into old habits, when I find myself retreating behind work, behind projects, behind the endless to-do list that never seems to get any shorter. There are days when I catch myself giving half my attention, nodding along while my mind is somewhere else, on a launch, on a meeting, on a problem that needs solving. And every time I do, I see the impact. I see the way the energy shifts, the way the connection fades, the way the distance grows. But I'm learning. Slowly, imperfectly, but I'm learning. I'm learning that love isn't about grand gestures or perfect timing or always knowing the right thing to say. It's about showing up. It's about being willing to sit in the discomfort, to stay present even when it's hard, even when every instinct tells you to run. There's a kind of magic that happens when you let yourself be seen. When you drop the armor, when you stop performing, when you let someone in. It's terrifying, yes. But it's also the only way to real intimacy. The only way to real connection. I think about all the times I tried to love from a distance. All the times I thought I was protecting the people I cared about by keeping my struggles to myself, by carrying the weight alone. But what I was really doing was building walls. Walls that kept me safe, maybe, but also kept me isolated. Walls that made it impossible for anyone to really know me, to really love me. And the irony is, those walls didn't just keep others out, they kept me out too. They kept me from experiencing the full depth of what love could be. They kept me from feeling the warmth, the closeness, the sense of belonging that comes from being truly seen and accepted. So I started to practice something different. I started to practice presence. Not just being in the same room, but actually being there. Putting down the phone. Closing the laptop. Looking into the eyes of the person I love and letting them see me. Letting them know that, in this moment, there's nowhere else I'd rather be. It sounds simple, but it's not. It takes effort. It takes intention. It takes a willingness to be uncomfortable, to sit with the awkwardness, to let the silence stretch without rushing to fill it. But in those moments, something shifts. The walls start to come down. The distance starts to close. The connection starts to deepen. And I realized, this is the real work. This is the work that matters. Not the work of building companies or launching rockets or changing the world. The work of being present. The work of loving well. It's not about being perfect. It's not about never making mistakes. It's about being willing to try, again and again, even when you fall short. It's about being honest about where you are, about what you're feeling, about what you need. And it's about listening. Really listening. Not just to the words, but to the feelings behind them. To the fears, the hopes, the dreams, the disappointments. To the things that are hard to say, the things that are easy to miss. I've learned that the most important thing you can give someone isn't advice or solutions or even love in the abstract. It's your attention. Your presence. Your willingness to be there, fully, without distraction, without agenda, without trying to fix or change or improve. Because in the end, that's what we all want. To be seen. To be known. To be loved, not for what we do, but for who we are. And that's what I'm learning to give. That's what I want to share with you. The possibility of loving better. Of loving more fully. Of loving, not from a place of fear or control, but from a place of openness, of vulnerability, of presence. So if you're listening to this, if you're someone who's ever felt like you were loving all wrong, know that you can change. Know that you can learn. Know that you can love better. It starts with a single moment. A single choice. A single act of presence. And from there, everything can change. There's something I want to share with you, something I wish I'd understood much earlier. It's this: the way you love is shaped by the stories you tell yourself about what love is supposed to be. And those stories, they don't always come from you. Sometimes they come from your childhood, from your parents, from the world around you. Sometimes they come from old wounds, from moments when you reached out and didn't get what you needed, from times when you learned, maybe without even realizing it, that it was safer to hold back, to protect yourself, to keep a little distance. I used to think that if I just worked hard enough, if I just achieved enough, I could earn love. That love was something you had to prove yourself worthy of, something you had to win. But love isn't a prize. It's not a transaction. It's not something you get for being good enough, or smart enough, or successful enough. It's something you give. Freely. Without conditions. Without guarantees. And that's scary, isn't it? Because when you give love freely, you open yourself up to the possibility of loss. Of disappointment. Of heartbreak. But you also open yourself up to the possibility of real connection. Of real joy. Of real intimacy. I think about all the times I tried to protect myself by holding back. By keeping a part of myself in reserve. By loving, but only up to a point. By giving, but only what I thought I could afford to lose. But that's not really love. That's a negotiation. That's a contract. And love, real love, doesn't work that way. There was a moment, a quiet, ordinary moment, when I realized just how much I'd been holding back. I was sitting across from the person I loved, and I saw it in her eyes, this longing, this hope, this invitation to let her in. And I felt the old fear rise up, the fear of being seen, of being known, of being vulnerable. But I also felt something else, a kind of longing of my own. A longing to be known, to be seen, to be loved for who I really am. So I took a breath, and I let her in. I let myself be seen. I let myself be vulnerable. And in that moment, something shifted. The distance closed. The connection deepened. The love became real. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cinematic. It was quiet. Simple. But it was everything. And that's the thing about love. It's not always loud. It's not always obvious. Sometimes it's just the willingness to stay. To listen. To be present, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. I've learned that the moments that matter most aren't the big, flashy ones. They're the small, everyday moments. The moments when you choose to stay, to listen, to care. The moments when you choose to love, even when it would be easier to walk away. And I've learned that love is a practice. It's not a feeling that just happens to you. It's something you choose, over and over again. It's something you work at, something you build, something you nurture. There are days when it's easy. Days when everything flows, when the connection feels effortless, when the love feels abundant and free. And there are days when it's hard. Days when you're tired, when you're stressed, when you're distracted, when the old fears and defenses come rushing back. But those are the days when the practice matters most. Those are the days when you have to choose love, even when it doesn't come naturally. I think about all the times I failed at this. All the times I let work come first. All the times I let fear win. All the times I let distance grow, thinking I was protecting myself, when really I was just missing out on the very thing I wanted most. But I also think about the times I got it right. The times I showed up. The times I listened. The times I let myself be seen. And those moments, those are the moments that make everything else worth it. If you're listening to this, if you're someone who's ever struggled to love well, I want you to know that you're not alone. We all have our struggles. We all have our blind spots. We all have our fears. But we can learn. We can grow. We can change. It starts with honesty. With the willingness to look at yourself, to see where you're holding back, to see where you're protecting yourself, to see where you're letting fear run the show. It starts with the courage to be vulnerable, to let someone in, to let yourself be seen. And it starts with presence. With the willingness to show up, to listen, to care. With the willingness to put down the distractions, to close the distance, to be there, fully, in the moment. I'm not perfect at this. Far from it. But I'm trying. Every day, I'm trying. And every day, I'm learning a little more about what it means to love well. I've learned that love isn't about fixing or changing or improving the other person. It's about accepting them. Seeing them. Loving them as they are, not as you wish they would be. And it's about letting yourself be loved in the same way. There's a kind of freedom in that. A kind of peace. When you stop trying to control everything, when you stop trying to earn love, when you stop trying to protect yourself from every possible hurt, you open yourself up to the possibility of real connection. Of real joy. Of real love. And that's what I want for you. That's what I want for all of us. The chance to love and be loved, fully, honestly, deeply. So if you're listening to this, if you're someone who's ever felt like you were loving all wrong, know that you can change. Know that you can learn. Know that you can love better. It starts with a single moment. A single choice. A single act of presence. And from there, everything can change. If you're still with me, if you've made it this far, I want to leave you with something real. Something you can carry with you, not just as an idea, but as a practice. Because the truth is, love isn't just a feeling, it's a series of choices. It's a commitment you make, not once, but over and over, in the smallest moments, in the quietest hours, in the spaces where no one else is watching. I used to think that love was about the big things. The grand gestures, the sweeping promises, the moments that look good in photographs or sound impressive in stories. But now I know it's about the little things. The way you listen when someone is speaking, even if you've heard the story before. The way you reach out, just to touch their hand, just to remind them you're there. The way you say, "I'm sorry," when you've messed up, and mean it. The way you stay, even when it would be easier to leave. There's a kind of bravery in that. A kind of quiet strength. It's not the kind of bravery that gets headlines or applause, but it's the kind that builds trust. The kind that builds a life. The kind that makes love real. I think about all the times I got it wrong. All the times I let my ambition get in the way. All the times I thought I was showing love by working harder, by providing more, by solving every problem I could see. But sometimes, the real problem wasn't out there, it was in here, in my own heart, in my own willingness to be present, to be open, to be vulnerable. And I think about the people who loved me anyway. The people who stayed, who listened, who waited for me to catch up. The people who saw through the armor, who reached for me even when I was pulling away. The people who taught me, by their example, what it means to love well. If you have someone like that in your life, hold on to them. Tell them what they mean to you. Don't wait for the perfect moment, or the perfect words. Just say it. Just show it. Because love isn't about perfection, it's about presence. It's about showing up, again and again, even when you're tired, even when you're scared, even when you don't know what comes next. And if you're still searching for that kind of love, don't give up. Don't settle for less than you deserve. Don't let the world convince you that you have to be perfect to be loved, or that you have to hide the parts of yourself that are still healing. The right person will see you, all of you, and love you, not in spite of your imperfections, but because of them. I know it's not easy. I know there are days when it feels impossible. Days when the old fears come back, when the old stories start to play on repeat, when you wonder if you'll ever get it right. But I promise you, you're not alone. We're all learning. We're all growing. We're all figuring it out, one day at a time. So here's what I want you to remember. Love is a practice. It's a choice. It's a commitment. It's not about never making mistakes, it's about being willing to try again, to show up again, to love again, even when it's hard. And if you're willing to do that, if you're willing to keep trying, to keep learning, to keep opening your heart, even when it hurts, then you're already loving better than you think. There's a kind of beauty in the struggle. A kind of grace in the effort. Because every time you choose love, every time you choose presence, every time you choose honesty, every time you choose vulnerability, you're building something real. Something lasting. Something that matters. I wish I could tell you there's a finish line. That one day you'll wake up and have it all figured out. But the truth is, love is always a work in progress. There will always be new challenges, new fears, new opportunities to grow. But that's what makes it beautiful. That's what makes it worth it. So if you're listening to this, if you're someone who's ever felt like you were loving all wrong, know that you're not alone. Know that you can change. Know that you can love better. Start small. Start today. Reach out to someone you care about. Tell them how you feel. Listen, really listen, when they speak. Be present. Be honest. Be vulnerable. And when you mess up, and you will, because we all do, say you're sorry. Try again. Keep going. Because that's what love is. It's not about getting it right every time. It's about being willing to keep trying, to keep showing up, to keep loving, even when it's hard. And if you do that, if you keep choosing love, day after day, moment after moment, you'll find that you're not just loving better. You're living better. You're building something real. Something that lasts. Something that matters. So, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being willing to do the work, to ask the hard questions, to open your heart, even when it's scary. Remember, you're not alone. We're all in this together. We're all learning. We're all growing. We're all figuring out how to love, one imperfect, beautiful moment at a time. And that's enough.